This is going to be a course about the Shema Yisroel. Was probably the most well-known prayer statement, mission statement of the Jewish people.
Listen.
Yes.
Rabbi, I can't hear you very well. Are you?
Anyone else having trouble hearing me? Is that a bit better? Want to put up your volume? Avram, is that a little better? I think you need to put up your volume. Can you hear me better?
That's better there.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's talk about the Shema Yisroel. The Shema Yisroel is a prayer that is generally said during the week, every day of the week, 7 days a week. Every day in the morning and the evening as part of the Shachrit and the Mariv prayer, the morning and the evening prayers. It's said at other times too. Shema Yisrael is said at other times too. We all are familiar with Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. The way that when we speak about the Shema, it could mean just that statement, just that line. It could mean one of the 3 paragraphs. Now, if you look in the Torah, so if you go to, these are all, the first 2 paragraphs are in Deuteronomy. So here is actually a picture of the Sefer Torah, of the Torah scroll.
Well, we read the second paragraph this past. We would have in South Africa had we been in shul. Read the second paragraph this past Shabbat.
Right. So yeah, the first paragraph we read just a few weeks ago in Parshas V'etchanan, and this is what it looks like over here. Let's get my little. I'm sharing my screen with you, right? Am I?
No, yes, now we are.
Oh, good. Okay, now you see my screen. Oh, good. Okay, so here we are. This is what the Torah looks like.
So am I the only one seeing a big black rectangular square on the right-hand side? Dark square over the text?
That is us. Don't worry about that. Okay. But can you see this? Can you see over here?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so this is just one, it's called a parsha. A parsha is a paragraph. So parshat Shema means the paragraph in the Torah. Now, paragraph in the Torah means that before it, there's space. You see the open space over here? And after it, there's space over there. That's how the Torah is divided. So this here is the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. And then it's got, you will love the Lord your God, etc. And this is considered what's called the first paragraph of the Shema. If you look in a bit later on in Deuteronomy, we have something called the second paragraph of the Shema. Okay, this is in later on in Deuteronomy, and here it starts off with, and this is called Vahaya im Shemoah, and it will be if you will listen to God. And remember, so over here it's empty. We go down a bit, if I could, to stop this. We go down a bit, and here's more empty space over here. And this is called the second paragraph. And then there's a third paragraph, which is in the book of Numbers. And that is this paragraph over here, talking about the tzitzis. So we will come back to why these, how do we know it's these 3? Now, what's special about these 3 paragraphs of the Torah that got included in this kind of statement? Now we call it a prayer. Actually, it's a reading of the Torah. We're not really praying to God. We're reading the Torah. It's a meditation. It's a it's something to read. Where does it come from? Where does it come from? So let's go back to basics. Okay, so in the Torah, we know that Yaakov Avinu, there was Abraham, there was Isaac, and there was Jacob. Now Jacob, he became known as Yisroel. God says to him, you know, Yaakov, actually when he's fighting with the angel, God says to him, you know what, he says, God's going to change your name from Yaakov to Israel, right? So Yaakov is an individual, and then he becomes Yisroel. So we have to remember that's his name. We are called, the Jewish people are called B'nai Yisrael, the children of Israel. And that's because, as we'll see now, we are called the children of Israel more than we are called the children of Abraham or Isaac. We don't call ourselves B'nai Avraham or B'nai Yitzchak. We can call ourselves B'nai Avraham, Yitzchak, Israel, but we always go from Israel. So here's what the Torah says. And Jacob called his sons. This is Jacob on his deathbed. By the way, this is Genesis 49. Okay? Jacob called his sons and said, come together that I may tell you what is to befall you in days to come. So Yaakov is saying, you know, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen in the future. That's very interesting, right? Wouldn't we all love to know? Assemble and hearken, O sons of Jacob, hearken to Yisroel, your father. Vishimu el Yisroel avikim. Listen to Yisroel, your father. And then he starts to bless them. Reuven, you are my firstborn, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So here is the Talmud on the side of the page. The Talmud in Psachim Nun Vav Amud Aleph says, and Rabbi Shimon ben Lachish says, and Jacob called his sons and said, gather around and I will tell you what will occur to you in the end of days. Jacob wanted to reveal to his sons when the complete redemption would arrive at the end of days. So there's a tradition that at the end of days, see Daniel 12:13, that there's going to be the Messiah is going to come and the world order is going to change tremendously. But the divine presence abandoned him. Why didn't Yaakov tell his sons about this? He goes on to bless them. He never tells them. The divine presence abandoned him, rendering him unable to prophesy. So he said, perhaps the divine presence has abandoned me because, heaven forbid, one of my descendants is unfit. Right? Remember, he has 12 sons, as was the case with my grandfather Abraham, from whom Yishmael emerged. Remember, not all of Abraham's children are the finest of children, right? Abraham has Isaac, that's nice, but he also had Yishmael. And like my father Isaac, and Isaac, whom Esau emerged, right? Yitzchak had Esav. So perhaps one of my 12 sons is unfit for me to tell them, you know, for me to be able to receive prophecy from the divine presence. His son said, so his son sensed this, and his son said to him, "Hear, O Israel," right? Shema Yisroel. So they are speaking to their father. His name's Yisrael. Shema Yisrael. Listen, Israel. All right? The Lord is our God. The Lord is one. Right? Adonai, Hashem, Adonai Eloheinu, the Lord is our God. Adonai Echad, the Lord is one. They said the Shema. They said the Shema. They said, just as there's only one God in your heart, so too there's only one in ours. At that moment, Jacob, our father, said in their praise, blessed be the name of his glorious kingdom forever and ever, as all his children were righteous. So that's the earliest time we find the Shema being said. So this is a statement of belief. It's a statement of recognition, of affirmation that the Hashem is our God and Hashem is one. That the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And that was said by the 12 sons of Yaakov, of Yisroel. And that's what the words mean. All right? Listen, Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Okay. So that's an interesting first time when it occurs. There's an interesting midrash over here. This is what's called Devarim Rabbah. It's a midrash on the Torah, and it's on the parsha of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and it's this parsha. So Amar Rebbe Pinchas Bar Chama. Unfortunately, it's not translated. I'm going to translate as I read to you. So Rabbi Pinchas, the son of Chama, so he said, Mimatan Torah Zachu Yisrael Likrois Shema. It was from the giving of the Torah that the Jewish people merited to read the Shema. Ketzad, how does that work? At Moitze Lo Pasach HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Sinai Techila Ela B'Davar Zeh. Because you see, this is how God started the whole revelation of the 10 Commandments. Amalehem. God said to the Jewish people, Shema Yisrael, listen, Jews, Shema Yisrael, Anechi Hashem Elohecha, right? I am the Lord your God. Nenu Kulam Va'amru, they all answered and said, Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. So God said, Shema Yisrael. The people said, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. O Moshe Ameh, and then Moshe said, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso L'olam Va'ed. Blessed be the name of His glorious kingdom forever and ever. So we see from here that as a nation, as a fully fledged nation, getting the Torah, the first thing we actually said was Shema Yisrael. That is confirmed by the Talmud Yerushalmi. So remember, the two Talmuds. One Talmud was written in Jerusalem, I think in about the year 350. And then about 150 years later, another Talmud was written in Babylonia, in Bavel. Most of the time we study the Babylonian Talmud. It's assumed that they knew the Jerusalem Talmud and they added to it. So says the Jerusalem Talmud in Maseches Brachos, says the Talmud, it says, why do we read these paragraphs every day? Right? He's asking, why do we read the Shema every day? So Rabbi Shimon said, because it is written on them going to sleep and waking up. Now, what does Rabbi Shimon mean? Rabbi Shimon means like this. It says, if you look at this parsha over here, now remember, I'm showing you this because this has a good translation in it. We need to bring it up. But remember, this is a distinct paragraph. This is a distinct paragraph in the Torah, right? This is Shema Yisrael, this paragraph. So what does it say? It says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is alone, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord with all your heart, all your heart. Take these words which I charge you today, impress them upon your children. Bind them as a sign. Recite them. These are the words that we need here. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. So here we see that this parsha, this paragraph itself says, say these words when you lie down, which the Talmud interprets to mean when you go to sleep, at the time when people go to sleep in the evening, and when you get up, and when you rise up in the morning. these words shall be said. That is true also of the second parsha. That is true also of the second parsha, which over here we'll go to. It says, and I'll just translate for you. Teach them, to speak about them. These should be spoken about. There it is again, right? So when you go to sleep, when you lie down and when you get up, these words should be said twice a day. The third parsha doesn't say it, by the way. The third parsha, the one about the tzitzis, doesn't. And the reason why this parsha is included is because it has the words right? Ani Hashem Elokeichem, I'm the Lord your God. Asher hotzeisi eschem me'eretz Mitzrayim, who took you out of Egypt, liyois lechem lelokim, to be your God. Ani Hashem Elokeichem, I'm Hashem your God. And the Talmud says, and the verse says, you should remember the day you came out of Egypt. And this is how we fulfill it. Because that's why the rabbis included this into the Shema, because it doesn't say over here, you should say these words every day, but it does say that you should remember the day you came out of Egypt. How should you do this? Well, if you say this parsha twice a day, you will remember it, because it says, I'm the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt. So we're fulfilling that mitzvah within the Shema. Okay. That is Rabbi Simon, right? Just by the way, it's interesting to note that Simon is a very Jewish name. I call him Simon, but it's really Simon. Same thing. Okay. What's fascinating is then, after Rabbi Simon speaks in the Talmud Yerushalmi, it says, Rabbi Levi said, because the 10 Commandments are included within that. Meaning, the reason why we say the Shema twice a day, every day, is in order to remember the 10 Commandments. Why then don't say that? Why don't we just say the 10 Commandments every day? According to, right? Rabbi Levi. So maybe he agrees with Rabbi Shimon, but he's saying, really, why did the Torah asking God? Why does the Torah itself say to say these? Yes, it says in the Torah, you shall say these when you lie down and when you wake up. But maybe Rabbi Levi is bothered by, but why did the Torah itself do that? Why does God himself do that? Because he wants us to remember the 10 Commandments this way. And this is how we find them. I'm the Lord your God. That's the first of the 10 Commandments. Shema Yisroel Adonai Eloheinu. Shall have no other gods. Adonai Echad. The Lord is one. Do not take God's name in vain. You shall love God. One who loves the King won't swear false in his name. Remember the day of the Shabbat. Laman tizkaru. You shall thus remember. Okay? Honor your father and mother. You and your children will endure on the land. We know that part of honoring parents in the 10 Commandments, it says, in order that your days be lengthened on the land. So it also says, you and your children will endure on the land in the Shema. And do not murder. You will rapidly vanish. Someone who murders will be murdered. Do not commit adultery. You shall not stray after your heart and your eyes. And said Rabbi Levi, the heart and the eyes are the two middlemen of sin. Okay, and then where do we find the rest? That's what it says over here. Do not steal. You will have an ample harvest, right? And not the harvest of your friend. Do not bear false witness against your fellow. Okay, that it says, I am the Lord your God. At the end in the Shema, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, I am Hashem your God. and then do not covet your fellow's house. Uksavtam al mezuzos beisecha. You will write them on the doorposts of your house and not on your friend's house. As we go through each part of the Shema, what it means, we will come back and reference this this Gemara. So there we have it. So the first thing was that Yaakov, or Yisroel, his son said it. That was the beginning of the Jewish people. This is the, right? Abraham is the foundation. Yitzchak is the foundation, but Yaakov becomes the Jewish people, right? We are Bnei Yisrael. We are the children of Yisrael. Then the Midrash says that we heard it as a people on Har Sinai, at Sinai, the Sinai experience imprinted the Shema on us. And in fact, that's what the Jerusalem Talmud says, is that when we are saying the Shema every day, we're really meant to have in mind, or it's based on the fact that they contain the Ten Commandments. Okay. The Talmud in Sukkah, this is the Talmud in Sukkah, 41a says, a minor child who knows how to wave the lulav is obligated in the mitzvah of lulav. This is, the Talmud over here is explaining the mitzvah of chinuch, of education. And it's saying that when children know how to do mitzvahs, they should be taught to do mitzvahs. The sages taught the minor who knows how to wave the lulav is obligated to wave the lulav. And if he knows how to put on the phylacteries, the tefillin, in cleanliness, one's not allowed to pass wind, he should get phylacteries. If he knows how to speak, his father immediately teaches him the Torah and the Shema. So the first things that a child, a Jewish child, is taught is the Torah and the Shema. Torah mahi, says the Gemara. What do you mean teach him the Torah? It's quite a big thing. Rabbi Hamanuna said it's referring to the verse, Torah tziva lanu Moshe morasha kihilas Yaakov. Moses commanded us the Torah, an inheritance of the congregation of Jacob, meaning that the whole Torah is yours. That's what we tell our children, and that's a well-known verse that children learn. A lot of children's songs about it because of that. Kriya Shema Mahi. When a child starts to speak, you got to teach him the Kriya Shema Mahi. Which part of it? Pasuk Rishon. That's just the first verse. The first verse, Shema Yisroel Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, is the first thing, one of the first two things a person should teach his children. So it starts in the individual. So in terms of the Jewish people, it started at the very beginning with Yaakov as a nation at Sinai. As individuals, it starts when the child first starts to speak. And then it's actually the last thing we say. The last thing we say every night. The last thing we say every night. There's something called Kriyat Shema al Hamita. Kriyat Shema al Hamita means the Shema on the bed, meaning before one goes to sleep, one should again say the Shema. And there's a special bracha called Hamapil that we say before going to sleep, and that precedes the Shema Yisrael and the first parsha, the first chapter of it. So it's this amazing statement of identity, statement of Jewish belief, statement of consciousness that we are, as a nation, starting off and ending off with the individual, starting our life off that way, starting the day off in the morning, saying that when you rise up, the last thing before we go to sleep. And there's even a custom to say it just before one dies, if one is able to, obviously. Where do we get that from? So the Talmud in Brachot says like this. The Talmud says that Rabbi Akiva was taken out by the Romans to be killed, He patiently endured while his flesh was being torn with iron combs and died reciting the Shema. He pronounced the last word of the sentence, Echad, with his last breath. Okay? Since then, it's been a tradition for Jews to say the Shema as their last words. So, as an individual, never mind, from the beginning of your life, the first words you start saying are Shema Yisroel, it's the last words you say in terms of one's life. Okay, that's the same thing. Here is just actually there are more verses to say in what's called Vidui, the confession before dying, and I saw someone called this the Kriya Shema Ala Misa. It's the Kriya Shema on death. There's a play on words on Kriya Shema Ala Mita. But anyway, there we have the Shema, and then we have these. I just want to tell you that as nationally, let's try find it quickly. Nationally, we say in the Kedusha of Musaf. So on Shabbos, we daven two prayers, the Shacharit, the normal morning prayer, and then we do an extra prayer, extra prayer called the Musaf of Shabbos. In there's a very special Kedusha. So the Kedusha of Shabbos says, right? It says like this: God, from your place, wherever you're hiding, or maybe we're hiding, from his place, he will turn to us in mercy. He will be gracious to the nation who make one his name, Erev Avoike, every evening and morning, B'chol Yom, every day, Tamid, constantly, without a break. There's never a day in the year we don't say it. Pa'amayim, Bi'ava, Shema Omrim. Twice, with love, we say the Shema, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And then we say, Hu Elokeinu, Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Mosheinu. He is our God, He's our Father, He's our King, He's our Redeemer. As a nation, we're waiting for this. When He will make us hear in His mercy, again, Shenis, a second time, Le'enei kol chai, in the eyes of all human beings, right? So Sinai was us as a nation with God. In terms of our role in history, we have to become the Meleches Kohanim V'Goy Kodesh, the nation of priests to the entire world. So in the eyes of the Kol Chai, in the eyes of everyone, I'm your God. God says, Ani Hashem Elokeichem. I'm the Lord your God. That's what it says. That God will rule forever and ever. So, as in terms of our national history and mission, history ends off, as it were. Right? The Talmud we just read in the Gemara in Shabbos says that when the Messiah comes, it will be Yomim She'em Leim Chayfetz, days without any desire, because the mission of the world would have come to an end. We would have come to this recognition, realization, constant state of consciousness of I'm the Lord your God. And of course, those are what the words Shema mean, right? Shema Yisrael, listen Israel, right? Not only to listen, but to accept, to be to be something to be conscious of, to be enlightened by, to be constantly aware of. Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem is our God, Hashem Echad. God is one. So that is a introduction to the Shema, and really its role for the Jewish people and throughout history. Okay. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
when you wake up in the morning, like you say on page the morning blessings, okay, and then you thank God for before the Akeda, like for everything. Then do you go to the Borchu and then say that the Shema there?
Yeah.
In the Shachar?
Yes. That's where the Shema is.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
There is also a little one before, but that's the main Shema. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I must, in terms of, I just want to mention one thing. In terms of the actual obligation to recite the Shema, so the Talmud says that this is a time-bound mitzvah. Meaning, in the morning, when it's 6 in the morning, that's the first time you can do the mitzvah. At 9, that's the last time. And at night, also, it starts at nightfall. It goes the whole night. The rabbi said you should say it before midnight. So the Talmud says it's time-bound. And because it's time-bound, women are not obligated. It's not an absolute obligation upon women because it's time-bound. Many women, however, have taken upon themselves, especially in the morning, to pray and to include this in their prayers. It's definitely said at other times we say it, in the Kedusha, etc. There's no issue with women saying it's recommended for women to say. I just wanted to mention that it's not an absolute obligation.
Hey, I want to throw this out there. If you go on YouTube and you
Marcus, can you speak up a little?
Yes. Can you hear me okay now?
Still struggling, but try, yeah.
Hold on. I have removed my mask in a public place in order to be heard. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Hello? Okay, great.
Yes.
So if you search on YouTube something like Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, the Shema, there's this cool video. It lasts, I don't know, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 10 minutes about the Shema as a meditation. And it's, I don't know, for me, to just listen to it, it's really centering. And it's not a meditation itself. It's just about the Shema being a meditation, but it's really cool to listen to. And there's some cool music.
Why don't you share that with all of us? Or you can share it with me and I'll share it with the group. Great.
Perfect.
All right, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank
Thank
you,
you
Rabbi.
very
Have a
much.
good night.
Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
We'll
See
see
you
you on Thursday.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Nick?